Once again, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're going to get started. So Precious will hand over to you to get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us once again to our third She Farms Working Lunch webinar session. We have three dynamic ladies that are going to be joining us today to inform the topic of the day. They will be introducing themselves shortly. But for me, I'm Precious Grihi. I am the Gender Inclusivity Advisor for Solidarity Network. I'm based here in Johannesburg, Rosebank. We work together with one of my colleagues who are in this session, who is going to be sharing some of her work. But without further ado, let me hand over to my colleagues to introduce themselves, and then we start the business of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you once again. My name is Nonto Masuru. You can call me Nonto. I am the convener of Accelerator Freak. Accelerator Freak is essentially a global community for African women in leadership. I'm really excited about this conversation today, and I want to believe that everybody is going to benefit from it. So thank you so much for coming in and joining us. I think now we will ask the panelists to please present themselves. To introduce themselves, sorry. We'll start off with Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa Mwea. I work at Solidarity's organization, Southern Africa, in the digital team, and I mostly focus on environmental geospatial engineering, and my core focus also, my main project is soil testing. That's just in a nutshell who I am.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Esther.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Esther Chigumira. I'm the Senior Agriculture Specialist with the World Bank here in the Harare country office. And I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you very much, Esther, and welcome. I don't know if Salima Blanca is on yet.
Doesn't look like she's on yet.
Okay.
So perhaps while we're waiting for her to join, Nonto, maybe we can start off with some of the discussions.
Okay, so essentially today, our topic today, we are talking about smart climate investments. And we also, I'm sure a lot of, we also hear about sustainability and things along those lines. And I'm sure, as all of us know, when you talk sustainability, you're talking about how you can operate in an environment where you are making profits as a business, but also at the same time, you're not causing any harm to people or the environment. So really, that's what we're all about today. We're talking about sustainability, and we're talking about climate change and how climate change is affecting crop and livestock production. So that's essentially what it is that we're talking about today. So we have Mrs. Mablanca. She's a farmer, and she's going to share her story. I'm hoping that she'll be able to join us shortly. So she's sharing her story on how she is actually using smart investment strategies to get her farm going. So I'm sure we're going to hear from her a little bit later. But I guess without further ado, we'll cross over and speak to Esther. We will start talking to Esther, and then hopefully Mrs. Mablanca will join us. So really, Esther, maybe to kind of start off our conversation. Like I've mentioned, the environment and climate change has really affected, agricultural sector in a big way. So my first question to you would be, generally, what environmental factors affect your crop or yield production and livestock production? And how can one get the optimum crop or yield animal production?
Great. Thanks very much, Nonto. So I think it's important to start off by saying that we need to realize that climate change is real. Years ago, we were experiencing drought, for example, every 10 years. Then it moved to 5 years. Now it's every 2 years, and that's serious, right? We have 250,000 smallholder farmers who rely on rain-fed agriculture. So if you are having drought every 2 years, that is a serious problem on productivity and on production. And it becomes very important in how we harvest our water and how we use our production system in a way that will allow us to retain water given these back-to-back droughts. We already see it in terms of agriculture or maize production. In the last few years, each time a drought has hit us, production has gone down. Another drought, production goes down to the point where, in terms of our strategic grain reserves, last year we had no carryover reserves and we were importing, which is a great cost to the country. So really getting ourselves involved in environmentally and ecologically friendly agriculture becomes critical, not only for sustainability, higher yield productions, but also as coping strategies. We've also seen this back-to-back droughts and at times the flooding situations that have happened affecting our livestock sector. What shocked me about 2 years ago when I was in a meeting was finding out that we had lost over 300,000 cattle to poverty deaths because there was not enough forage due to drought, right? Or because we've lost to disease like tick-borne disease, which is preventable, but because of also our increasing heat and climate, our cattle are being subject to it as well. So for me, there's a real need to really understand agroecological principles in order to really boost agricultural production and reduce livestock mortality and morbidity. Thank you, and over to you, Nonto.
Thank you so much for that, Esther. Those are really frightening stats that you're actually sharing with us. And I think it's pretty clear that we need to be doing something. As farmers, as individuals, there are things that we need to do in order to mitigate these challenges that we're facing with regards to climate change. And also we need to ensure that whatever we're doing, we're not actually causing even more damage to the environment. So I guess my next question to you would be, World Bank, in conjunction with various African governments, and I know Zimbabwe being one of them, has come up with a context-specific climate-smart agriculture investment plan report. Please tell us a little more about that and how it affects those in the agricultural sector.
Yes, so what the World Bank has done, and if I'm not able to share my screen, I'll speak to it. Together working with government, we realized that there's a lot happening in terms of climate change, and there needs to be smart investments if we are to transform our agriculture sector. So you will know that our government has an agricultural transformation strategy. They have got a national agriculture recovery strategy and a livestock growth plan. All those strategies are kind of blueprints to get agriculture going again and to get agriculture moving into what it used to be and into that billion-dollar industry that we know of. As a reality, I really think that agriculture is a key economic driver within the country. So together with the bank, we looked at what are the key priority areas as related to climate change. All these 3 blueprints I discussed talk about climate change in them and how that is a challenge, right? So you need to prioritize investments. And the bank together, working together with government, came up with a climate smart agriculture investment plan. And that climate agriculture investment plan is supposed to feed into the Zimbabwe agriculture investment plan because these go hand in hand. and there's that climate component that becomes critical. Within the report, we put in about five packages, and those packages are really looking at, and I will read through those, enhanced agriculture knowledge and innovation systems. And this is really working with our extension officers and being more ICT savvy to deal and address with issues to do with climate change. The second one is sustainable livestock through diversified livestock systems. And on this one, I want to focus a bit on it because this package, as I said, livestock are a critical component to smallholder agriculture, to subsistence agriculture, their coping strategy, their capital asset. And it becomes very important that we really look at ways of maintaining our livestock. And so what we've done within that sector is say that there are three areas that need to be addressed. We've got to look at nutrition and alternative nutrition to address the poverty deaths that I spoke a little bit about. We need to look at production and productivity. How do we grow the livestock sector? How do we put in more money in order to get the right genetics for livestock? Then I'll move on to the third area of investment, which is water harvesting for resilient crop and livestock production. As I said, we are now being hit with back-to-back droughts almost every 2 years. So you need to invest in water harvesting. The fourth area is for me, and it's Women's Month. It is women and youth-focused value chain development, getting women into more livestock. And you know, people sometimes say women should be in cattle. I apologize, my children have just come from school. But the people have come from, excuse my train of thought there, my daughter interrupted, but this is home-based work. So what we have is that women do not have the right access to finances. We need to prioritize that. We need to look at the way that women have access to markets and value addition. And also the third area is really to invest even in the small ruminants. The small livestock become very critical and very important in terms of the growth of the sector. Our last part is resilient commercial dairy farming. So the 5 areas in terms of prioritizing. And as the bank and government within the CSIP, we've said it cannot be done. Government cannot do it on its own. Development partners cannot do it on their own, and neither can NGOs, right, do it on their own, or farmers. There needs to be collaboration. It has to be a collaborative effort, but we need to prioritize those investments and have the right investments in the right areas, in the right agroecological zones in the country. So I will end there and maybe invite more questions as those come through. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Esther, for sharing that. We really appreciate the information. And just like Esther has said, ladies and gentlemen, for those who have questions for Esther, please can you use the chat box to just type in your questions. And I'm sure you're all aware of our topic today. If you have questions, whether it's in crop production or livestock production, please go ahead and share, and type in your questions so that we can read those, or even comments. Please go ahead and do that. And please go ahead and tell us where you're coming from, because we'd love this to be we'd love to hear from you and know where you're all coming from. So please use the chat box to communicate as well. Thank you so much, and I will hand over to Precious. Is Precious there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, thank you so much, Esther. That was really amazing. What you're doing, the information from the World Bank, it's remarkable. And I think this links very well with some of the work that we at Solidaridad are doing in terms of cattle farming and also the environmental aspect of it. And we are going to be hearing more about what we as Solidaridad are doing through my colleague here who's joined us, Lisa. Maybe Lisa, you can just tell us a little bit about what you are doing within the digital space to mitigate some of the effects of climate change in relation to not just cattle farming, but also crop farming. So yeah, over to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. So for us, in the digital space, we try to incorporate the information that we gather from the farmers. I would say working from, personally, I'm working as an environmental and geospatial analyst. We actually incorporate the use of satellite technology so that we can be able to access and know where our farmers are located and look at other aspects such as the environment around them. So basically working with information from space to monitor things on the ground. From there, we are also able to incorporate some of our tools, data collection tools, where we know where each individual farmer is located, and we try to follow up with every farmer on which also it works with the programs that we have at Solidaridad. So we incorporate our digital tools with crop production under soy, fruit and veg, or under livestock. I would say that we also have other couple of climate smart tools that we are currently working on so that we can be able to determine and map out resilience for farmers, both from livestock and also under crop production. And it is much more targeted because it shouldn't be just an overall thing, but mostly based on location and also demographics of the farmer. And as Esther had already mentioned, that those are aspects that I think would be able to cover around the mitigation and climate change adaptation processes. Yeah, that's just in a nutshell that we have work that we do under digital.
Great. So I know obviously we have a range of tools that we are using under our digital at Solidaridad. And one of the key or groundbreaking technologies that we are using is soil testing. And we have done quite a lot of work in the space. So perhaps can you please share with us the soil testing at Solidaridad and how we are using this soil testing as one of the climate smart tools, and how does this soil testing benefit the farmer? And also perhaps you can share a little bit about how is Solidaridad working with farmers and equipping them with this tool. I'm not sure if I'm probably hijacking you on this one in terms of the gender aspect of it, because I know you're collecting data also that's disaggregated by gender. Just to kind of tell us how women are using these technologies, this climate smart technologies within their farming sector.
Okay, so can I just slightly share my screen because it's slightly bigger process, if that's possible. Are you able to see my screen right now?
Yes, we are.
Yes. So for the, I would say soil testing should be like the main, maybe the main guiding factor for a farmer, so that they are able to know which type of crop that they can grow, and also to be able to monitor their own farm like as if it's their own child. So I'll usually look at soil testing as the basis of knowing what your farm needs, and also trying to be able to balance between how much you would spend on your farm, and at the same time, how much can you be able to mitigate and also take care of your farm as a farmer. So so for us at Solidaridad, the main intention is to actually educate the farmer, small scale producer, large-scale producer, but mostly small-scale producer in our rural communities on the importance of soil testing. And also, just not only does it stop on soil testing and telling them this is what you've gotten for your soil, but how to correct and how to plant and manage the farms. So it is mostly, knowing the importance of soil testing, but also knowing the importance of managing your farm so that you can be able to conserve the environment, at the same time being able to mitigate what mitigate and what you're using on the farm. We are currently located in Zambia, Mozambique, and South Africa. In the meantime, we are planning to branch to Malawi and Zimbabwe, but we work in rural areas. So it's not a place where our farm soil labs are or soil testing facilities are located in the towns. They are actually in the most rural communities that we work in, as also as Solidaridad. We are able to train farmers through our Solidaridad way of training. We actually also do training for soil testing. And it's not about training on soil testing, it's basically soil education. That's my look at it. So whilst they are taught how to do planting and other agricultural activities, aspects on soil testing and the importance of soil testing and knowing the chemicals that are inside your soil is very important as a main factor for crop growth and also monitoring. It's also, the other thing is we also do, we've done soil testing on rangeland, which is basically one of our livestock, it's part of our livestock project. So to also monitor the nutrition of the vegetation around that area, so that nutrition actually affects animal growth and all that. Our soil collection method is very simple, so I don't think it's more of somebody who's really educated in soil testing would go and collect the soil. It's very practical. We are able to, and this actually creates employment for the people around that area. So we also look at that, how many, as we would want as many young people to be involved in this. And I think it's one of the aspects that they learn as they go by when they do soil testing, when they meet farmers and they discuss about the importance of soil testing and collecting your soil and testing your soils. And I'll say the one groundbreaking technology that I actually encountered, and this links to why I did environmental geospatial sciences, is that we actually use a portable scanner which can test soils anywhere. And that is what makes it amazing, because it really doesn't require reagents, which costs money and also costs a lot of expertise, but it is factors that have been incorporated on to the, it's a library of soil information, where when somebody tests the soil, they can get their results from it. And it actually takes 15 minutes. So it reduces the, maybe the time that which a farmer should get a soil test from the soil labs in the area, but at the same time, an agricultural officer who is trained in agriculture can actually be able to actually tell the farmer the type of soil that they have. It's a very concise report that is provided to the farmer, and it's not as technical as most of the soil lab reports, which we don't want to say that the soil labs are not important. They actually are very important, because they test other chemicals that maybe the scanner would not be in effect, have an effect, or maybe would not test. And we also do the delivery process, and the delivery process is not only a handover, but it's mostly to actually guide the farmer on what they need and where to actually get maybe fertilizer, which could be artificial or organic fertilizer that they would need. So this is the most important aspect of also the soil testing as for the farmer. And at the same time, it has also been we have also been able to factor in things such as how long does it take for one to actually know their farm, and how much will it cost them to buy maybe a specific fertilizer. Maybe they've been spending more money on a type of fertilizer which was wrong for the soil, and maybe they wouldn't need that fertilizer in the soil, and they would get maybe a really cheaper one. So it's those things that have really come out of us doing soil testing and actually making sure that we can be able to know what the farm is, the product, let's say how to mitigate your farm in form of what you are able to plant, and also knowing the soil texture and soil structure of your soil. Then this is just a basic report. So it just gives you the adequacy and fertility status of your report, depending on the crop that you want to plant. So it's very targeted. So not an overall view of what your soil is, but what your soil needs based on just all the crop you're planting, but it's a specific crop. So this one would actually help you to determine, I would want a target yield of 3,500 on a 1 hectare piece of land. And this is my soil type. So what are my needs for my soil, so that I will be able to factor that in. And considering that most of our farmers are actually rain-fed farmers, so we also need to factor that in. And not all farmers have access to fertilizers. So there is an aspect, there is a place where we have factored in the use of organic fertilizers such as animal manure into the report. Most of our farmers would not know English or Portuguese, so that's why there's a need for the field enumerators who collect soil tests. They will be able to test and to actually deliver and provide guidance on the report. This is just an overview of the report. And what has been very intriguing is that, and I'll point it out to Precious, that most of our farmers come back to the lab and they say, this is what we've gotten as our results. So there is this, the first time when I was taking up the project was this young lady, young girl, who came to the lab with the dad, and the father was really excited because that was the largest guava he's ever produced from his tree. So such things make me happy. First of all, it's the daughter came to the lab, but also the fact that, you know, introducing also a child to maybe farming and all that is one of the aspects that I think I pick up from all the results that we actually get, or people who tell us that these are the farmers. This one, the second picture was actually the yield of one of our farmers. This was the largest cabbage that we have ever grown. It was about 8.7 kgs, and that's like after 3 years when the largest one was recorded was 5.8 kgs, and that was in Chongwe district. So this information was recorded, and such information is actually stored with government. And this is how we're able to know that maybe the seed variety that is growing on the soil works, because of the farmer knowing the type of crop that they are planting, the type of soil that they have, and if they're actually following the recommendation of the soil report. One of the ladies in one of our regions in Zambia, Katete, she actually said she would want to be a soil testing ambassador because this is her field, and she was able to also, fortunately for her, she is able to use irrigation. But these are the amount of tomatoes that have come out from her following the recommendation. And the last person was the young, this man who just came in from a training, one of our trainings, and he said, I followed the recommendation over 6 weeks ago, and this is what I got for my eggplant. And that actually for me is much more of, yes, we are doing soil testing, but are we also we also kind of start addressing the type of seed variety that is sold in the market, and also the fertilizer nutrients, fertilizers that are sold in the market. How do we shape that? Because from our global soil policy and African soil policy, and most of our national governments have these policies to assist small-scale producers in the area to be able to have access to better seed variety and also better like fertilizers in the market. So for me, soil testing, being a climate smart tool, addresses all that. Not overuse of fertilizer, or what type of fertilizer actually causes leaching on the ground and all those things. So that's about how we go about soil testing as a climate smart tool in Solidaridad, but also out of Solidaridad for our small scale producers. Thank you so much, Precious. You just stop sharing, or
yeah, no, this is excellent. I like this a lot. In terms of the women uptake of the soil testing, Lisa, have you seen any difference? Because I know the reason I'm asking this, not that male farmers are not important, they are, but we know that when it comes to technology, women tend to lag behind. I mean, when you read the recent global report on gender, the gender gap report, you see that one of the areas that women lag behind the most is finance, technology, and two other areas. But since today the topic is on climate change and technology, I mean, what are some of the trends have you seen in terms of uptaking this this technology? I see there's this beautiful woman there, but we don't know if she's 1 in 100 or she's 99 out of 100 men. I don't know. So can you please just share the experiences?
So working with my team, I would say that actually the uptake is half the amount of the males. So I would say 50%. The total population, it's not like a balance 50-50, but when you look at the proportion males to females, you will look at it like 50% of what maybe the male farmers. So the male farmers will be more than the female farmers, but it's basically the 50% uptake. I think it's just one of those things that, let's say culture, cultural backgrounds, that's one of the important things. Who owns the pieces of land? So chances are maybe it's the man who owns the piece of land and the name goes as a man. And it could be that our field enumerators go and meet the female farmers, but they would put in the name of the husband on the soil report because he owns the piece of land. So such things could actually come out as that. We are working on that. I know we had one of our trainings. It was very interesting. They just announced they would be doing a soil testing training. They went and put posters at the clinic and all these other places, very strategic because most of the women are there. And they were targeting 50 farmers. They got around, I think, 40 farmers, but 38 of them were women. So I don't know if it is more of where are most of the women and do they own those pieces of land or do they want to do soil testing? And from there, we actually got 7 farmers who wanted to do soil testing and know about their farms. So it's not really a first take on, here's a soil test, you can do the soil test and get the results. There is also, why do I need to do a soil test if I'm just testing the soil? Then I can know my pH or if things have been working. But it's more of, we need to educate them on how they can be able to conserve their soil, but at the same time looking at other factors that might limit them to maybe not having better yields for themselves. And we don't want to have poor soils at the same time, no rain or drought happening. So we try to mitigate one so that the others can be covered through.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing there, Lisa. I think this is such a great tool, especially in the age of agroecology, where we are promoting sustainable agricultural production systems. And this is obviously one of the main strategies. I think many farmers need to know how to farm the soil, how to prepare the soil, what soils are conducive to the environment for planting specific products. And I think this is really a great initiative. So thanks to you for sharing this. And over to you, Nonto. I don't know if you have any further questions.
Well, thank you so much for that, Lisa. Very insightful, and I have benefited quite a bit from that presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, those who are listening and watching, please use that chat box, ask those questions. Some of you are farmers and you need to know how to manage your soil. That is very critical when it comes to your crop yield and things like that. So please, if you have any questions, please share those. I think Wangani Ndlovu just says, thank you, facilitators, informative, very informative session. So thank you very much for that. So I'm just going to cross over to Maria. So Maria is not officially one of the panelists, but she's an amazing woman, and she is actually an agroecologist. And she is very passionate about this topic that we have today. So Maria, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, and welcome to everyone who's managed to join us. I'm glad to be part of the discussions here.
Thank you so much, Maria. So I've got a question for you. Maybe just briefly, what is agroecology? In layman's terms, what is agroecology?
Okay, very simplified version is that agroecology is when we carry out agriculture food production systems using practices which work in line with nature and also supportive of the natural systems which are already existing within a particular production area without heavy reliance on external inputs, for example, chemicals and fertilizers. So basically what agroecology does is it looks at the surrounding systems which are there and trying to see how we can best use those in a way which looks after the environment, while at the same time building on the indigenous traditional knowledge systems, which also makes me kind of excited because we're talking about soil testing. So I can use that as a very quick, good example of how agroecology works. So when the soil test is done, which is a very good and important aspect, when that is done, then we come in and try to identify the different sources of organic matter from the surrounding plants which are within the area without necessarily having to look outside what we have. So that also then builds into the natural soil system and it becomes a continuum. So that is what agroecology does. It actually looks at what we have, how to use it efficiently and reducing wastage. So I think in a nutshell, that's how I can describe it.
Thank you very much for that. And I think, you've already mentioned soil testing, but what are the sustainable agricultural production systems should farmers adopt to ensure higher yields?
Okay, to ensure high yields is not the only. Okay, when you're looking at agroecology, we also look at resilience, we also look at sustainability, and then we also look at viability. That's where the high yields component comes in. So when we are looking at resilient systems, for example, we try to increase the amount of the different types of crops in one given area. That improves the resilience in the event that, for example, if you use a short season crop like green beans, and then you intercrop it with maybe maize, you bring in the pumpkins, and then already you have 3 different types of crops in one area. So if one crop doesn't do well in the event of the extreme weather event, the farmer still remains resilient. They have another income source, they have another food security source. And then that integration of different types of crops also brings in the dimension of increasing the income. You can start selling the green mealies, you can start selling the green beans, but that is diversifying income generation. And it also brings in a component of ensuring environmental systems are sustained, because the diseases which affect the beans are different from what affects the maize, are different from what affects the pumpkins. So in just that simple way of cropping, we've already addressed like 3 or 4 different dimensions to farming. Yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for that, Maria. Very informative. Precious, I don't know if you want to add on to what, if you want to ask Maria any questions, or we can move to move on to Esther.
Sorry, just a comment to say agroecology at the moment, it's one of the hot topics in agriculture. And I'm really happy that it is brought up and it's linking very well to the issue of soil and healthy soils and how we can promote or encourage our farmers to adapt to agroecology. I know one of the challenges that women or men or just all farmers who are in the agroecological space complain about is how expensive it is to be in the space. So it's really encouraging to see that there are technologies out there, simple technologies, not expensive or over-the-top technologies that can be adapted by farmers to actually make their life easier, especially those that have the view that farming the agroecological way or in a sustainable way is actually quite expensive. So really, thank you so much, Maria, for sharing that, and also for knowing that there are simple ways of mitigating the challenges that many farmers in the space face.
As another comment,
I see. Yes, so Maria has her hand up. Yes, please go ahead, Maria.
Thank you for saying that, but I just wanted to clarify 1 or 2 things. A lot of people confuse agroecology with organic farming. Because when you're talking about organic farming, there are issues to do with certification. There are issues also in agroecology, we have issues to do with transitioning from the conventional chemically dependent farming towards the more environmentally sustaining ways of farming. So when you're looking at organic farming certification and also getting into the international standards and also local standards, that's where it becomes expensive. But agroecology now is, it doesn't have a one size fits all. It's tailor-made to meet local resources, from the natural resources to the human capital to also what other resources are within the natural environment which can enhance productivity without increasing the production costs at household level. So I just wanted to clarify that, yes, if we are talking about getting into organic farming certification, the transition might take a bit of time, but agroecology is then, it's low cost. That's the beauty of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also a comment from Dendai, who says, besides soil tests, it may be important to train farmers in what makes a healthy soil. For example, visible decomposed organic matter. Maybe Tendai, if you are online, it would be good to hear from you, your thoughts on this. Just 1 minute, 1 second, Tendai, if you can just please elaborate a little bit more on your comment.
No, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My comment was just to support the presentation on soil testing, where I was then saying there are other methods where farmers can tell between a poor soil and a good soil by virtue of adopting practices like what Maria mentioned, the issues around agroecology, where farmers, for example, grow trees, legume trees around their fields, also practice mulching and so forth. Over time, those practices should be able to increase soil organic matter, and the farmers should be able to see between decomposed soil organic matter and even undecomposed soil organic matter and the biota, like earthworms and termites, which then increase in the field. And these are also, telltale signs of a healthy soil. So that's what I was just saying in support of what Maria has said. But when you also look at those practices, when you apply chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, or even fertilizers, those, as they change the pH, for example, if you are using ammonium nitrate, you then see a reduced biotic activity. You see less earthworms, you see less termites, and so forth. You may get good yields in the short term, but in the long term, the fertilizers become harmful to the soil. So farmers should then see how they can balance between the use of chemicals, which I would advocate to be reduced, and increase use of organic sources of fertilizers. These, they can also then track and see whether the soil is getting healthier or poorer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tendai. That was excellent. Thank you for sharing that knowledge. Over to you, Nonto. I'm not sure if you have any follow-up questions.
No, I don't. Thank you so much. I guess we can go ahead and go back to Esther.
Okay, all right. Esther, back to you. So some of the climate smart investment interventions in African countries are adapting, so I'm just looking at this question here. Some of the climate smart investment interventions African countries are adapting include improved livestock production practices, improved water management, conservation agriculture, agroforestry, and digital agriculture. We've seen already some of the digitization of soil. But what are some of the climate smart investments or interventions that are being implemented in Zimbabwe? Or perhaps some of the agriculture smart interventions that World Bank are promoting within the space?
Great, thanks, Precious. You've got me on a topic that I totally love, and I'm going to talk about two sets of, it's not necessarily the intervention by the World Bank, but what we are seeing globally happening, but also a platform that the World Bank has for farmers called the Agriculture Observatory. So I want to go back to livestock because I really think when I like the fact that Maria has talked about the agroecology and how that is really important for crop production. And Lisa has brought in the idea of soil testing, which are really important for crops. So I'm going to put my two on livestock because it really is an important capital asset. What we are seeing, especially in Korea, and some of the ideas, I think we already have pilots in Zimbabwe, is when I said we've got a package B that is looking at livestock as a kind of climate smart investments in livestock. And I said an area that we'll be looking at is nutrition. So alternative nutrition or enhancing alternative feeds. A key stumbling block that farmers have faced, particularly given that we are importing a lot of our crops like sorghum, soybeans, and maize, it's that the price of stock feed is very expensive. And that also leads to the problem of poverty deaths or starvation of cattle. And so what we are seeing now are various pilots that have been tested in other countries of actually looking at what we call micro livestock. These are really insects that are being used as cattle feed with very high protein. And you're looking at insects like maggots. I think there's a bit of maggot farming that is taking place. But what I like about it is that maggot farming does not take up huge hectares of land, right? You're doing it in crates in a very small area. So anyone can get involved in it. Women can get involved. Young people can get involved. And you always hear that young people say, but atina kwekurima, we don't have a place of our own. But think about it. You could do maggot farming in a backyard. You could find a small little holding that you can do it on. It doesn't require 2 hectares of land, but it provides the right nutrition that can then be used into livestock stock feeds. And that would be one part of the way of addressing the issue of these constant poverty deaths that are kind of related to the climate shocks. So that is one area that the bank, and I know FAO has also been piloting in terms of these insects for feed. I know the University of, Chinhoyi University of Technology, Dr. Mapondera is also a lead in terms of insects for feed, so our micro livestock. So a really climate smart investment that probably is not expensive because flies are everywhere, right? Becomes quite important, and it's something that anyone smallholders can do. The second area is what we call the Agriculture Observatory. Now, this is a subscription-based platform which the bank has been piloting for the last 2 years. And on this platform, farmers get access to what we call agrometeorological data. So weather information, rainfall information. And on that platform, you get that near real-time weather for your district, and you can get that data towards the farm level. And the idea is to help you plan better, right, for events. It helps you know when to do your planting, when you're likely to get the rainfall. So you're really using that IT, that high resolution satellite information to help with your daily farming. And when I talk about this, I'm not talking about it in terms of this high level things. We train people in how to download the data, understand the data, and how that they can use that information on their farm. We had one farmer last year, and there was a drought year, who really came to every single training session, produced a bulletin on his farm, and that information every single day actually helped him out during a drought year to get 30 tons of maize on a 5-hectare field, right? Which was above what we were seeing in terms of the tonnages that were coming per hectare. So he wrote to me and he said, Esther, this information that I got was really so important in my farming. I really thank you that I came onto this platform, because having access to information, and this is free information, this is free training. As the bank, we buy the subscription, so it's open to farmers, and they can use it to really build back better after all this back-to-back droughts that we've been facing. I think those are my two interventions in terms of micro livestock and the Agriculture Observatory as key areas to enhance farming practices and planning. Over to you, Precious.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, this is really important, especially for our small scale farmers, important knowledge to know, because, you know, with the UN slogan, don't leave anyone behind. We're not leaving anyone behind. We see, especially in the farming sector, it's dominated by large scale commercial farmers who have access to this high-tech technology. And because of that, we see, you know, obviously the domination of you know, commercial farmers versus our small scale farmers who don't have access to this kind of knowledge and this kind of technology. So I'm really glad to hear that the bank is doing such amazing work to actually target these farmers through training and, you know, exposing them to this kind of technology so that they can advance their farming practices. So really excellent work to you, Esther, and your team. Over to you, Nonto.
Thanks, Precious. Sorry, I just wanted to add, just to say that this is not for farmers only, but we've got government extension workers involved on the platform, the Meteorological Services Department, think tanks, and academia. So it is a platform that is big, and if people are interested, they can join the community of practice, and we train you. Thank you.
That is excellent. Is the training is free, Esther, I take it, or is it a paid for?
No, that is correct.
service?
All you need is your data and your smartphone or a tablet, and you can come onto the platform.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Esther. We will be sharing more details of this on our website or after this session, so that those that are interested to be part of this can enroll. Thank you. Over to you, Nonto.
Thank you so much for that, Esther. Thank you very much. I just want to read a few comments here. Someone says, Mutuzalem, sorry, I didn't get that right. But it says, good day all. For someone who would like to learn more and get some follow-up sessions or even consultations, which contacts can we use? So I think with that one, Solidaridad, I'm sure they are more than happy to be able to assist. So maybe Precious, you could just maybe send an email or whatever, just give them information with regards to how they can get in touch with Solidaridad. And then Maria, okay, Maria, that's Maria says agroecology needs a few series of its own, quite exciting and inspiring approaches. Thank you so much for that. So Precious will share details with regards to how to get information. But speaking of that, we're actually, Lisa, we're talking about soil testing. And so my question to you is, how can people get that information? And how can they get that soil tested without necessarily breaking the bank? I know commercial farmers is probably not, it's not an issue, but for your smallholder farmers, how can they easily, access this information, and how can they actually get their soils tested?
For us, where we have set up our soil labs, that's where they could get information, but we also move around, obviously, with marketing aspects. They can contact our labs to get the soils, soil information and soil tested, depending on the region on where they are. So it's not very limited to, are they going to move around to get their soils tested to the lab, but much more of, is it possible for them to have their soils collected and also a report delivered to them? So they can actually contact our labs. We actually are available on Facebook, and we also have a website link where you can get much more information based on it and contact us from there. And the others are mostly, I think we would hear a lot about it. So mostly through our website, kivuno.io, and also from Facebook, you can contact us. And we will be able to tell you which location you can be able to get your soils tested from.
Thank you for that, Lisa. Maybe if you could just type that, because we will probably want to get the spelling right. So if you could type out and then everybody can see. But thank you very much. Over to you, Precious. Precious there?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Wow. Sorry, my technology is playing up a little bit here. Everything is frozen. But this is a question to not Auntie Esther, but to Maria, on how, in terms of getting women to adopt sustainable agricultural production systems. I mean, I'm sure you are a big player in this space. What has been some of your experiences? And if women are not really keen to uptake this type of farming system, I mean, how can we encourage more, especially young people too? I mean, because we see that there's an aging population when it comes to farmers. And I mean, we recently went to Zimbabwe and we were doing some farm visits. And all the districts that we went to about 5 districts in Zimbabwe, and we met with farmers. There wasn't a single young person there. The youngest was probably 62 years old or above. No offense if you're 60 and above, but I'm just trying to highlight that there wasn't a single young person, not even a 25-year-old. Even though these farmers have children of their own, they were nowhere to be seen. So this is really a concern for Africa in general. How do we get maybe perhaps more young people to uptake sustainable agricultural production systems, and also women, because women are key in teaching the young or the youth Yes, this is a question directed to Maria. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yes, it is of great concern indeed for us to get the young people in particular to be interested in in agriculture in general, especially when you're talking about the sustainable approaches which we want to enhance. So what comes out really over the years, working with smallholder farmers, especially in the vulnerable communities? Yes, the youngest people there you might see maybe are the early 40s or very few of them. So the issue is we need to invest more in terms of identifying appropriate and relevant technologies. Because, for example, I keep on going back to soil fertility management. For example, when you're looking at soil fertility management and you want to bring in fertility trenching, you want to bring in liquid fertilizer pits. Someone spoke about the worm farming, we do vermicompost. So all those things mean there's need for the structures to be put in place. And that is a lot of labor. It involves a lot of drudgery. So what we need to do is to marry the agroecology and the sustainable practices which we want for them to have research for development, which identified particular niche needs, which makes the farming easier. And then you also not only look at cropping per se, but we come in with an integrated kind of approach where we'll be integrating the small livestock, the indigenous people. Yeah, and then we also look at off-farm kind of activities. For example, we've tried to come up with community youth centers where we bring in renewable energy, solar-powered incubators, solar-powered, where they will be even providing phone charging services to the community, printing services to nearby schools. So those kinds of things also, if you bring in a bit of ICT into that as well, and making the youth more involved in terms of, digital record keeping, working alongside the elder generation, it makes them become more involved, more interested, and they see that farming is not only about digging dirt, they also get to appreciate that there's more to farming besides just the hard labor. So you can also do some off-farm activities as well. Yeah, those are some of the innovative approaches, just to give a highlight of some of the ways we've managed to get the youth involved.
Excellent. Maybe just the same question that I asked Maria around youth involvement. Lisa and Esther, can you just please share 1 minute each on how you have been able to, engage young people in the interventions that you are doing or that you presented today? With you, Lisa, first, and then Esther. Thank you.
I think personally, it would be more of they look at it as an employment aspect before, looking at it more of, let's say, a type of farming. But I think it's a gradual process, I would say, from our side, as trying to get youth to be involved, especially in agriculture. We do have small spots here and there, but the range is usually maybe you'd get between a few 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and then you have the rest who actually are much more involved in agriculture. But I think mostly it comes off as, is it something that will pay me, or does it excite me to do? So trying to make agriculture much more, I'll say, youth savvy, that would be the aspect behind it. So we're kind of in between there.
Yeah, but in a sense, you are doing very well, because with the soil testing services, it's largely young people that are providing that type of service, working with older farmers. So you're kind of bridging that gap where youth are working with older farmers. So there's that generational interactivity or interaction where youth are working with farmers and farmers are also interacting with youth with the technological aspects, which is always a draw, especially when it comes to farming. Young people always want to know what's the cool gadgets. What am I using? Am I using technology or am I using the old-fashioned way? But if you bring in technology, then that's what's really attractive. That's what attracts youth more into the technological space, which is what you are doing already, Lisa, in your project, which is excellent. And Esther, in your activities, in your interventions, how are you bringing in or promoting young people to come into the space of agriculture, even women? I mean, not just youth, of course. Yeah, since it's Women's Month.
No. Thanks, Precious. And I think I want to go from where Lisa came off, is the idea of excitement. And technology is what also excites young people. And my experience is I've had to reach out, find the farmers union that have a number of youths in them and invite them. And just about a month ago, we invited them for just a sharing right on the Ag Observatory. But what touched me was when one youth could not get onto the log in and said, listen, can I just listen via WhatsApp? I just need to understand what this is all about, right? So I think what excites youth is this intersection of this technology and agriculture. And I also want to point out that in our work and in my work as an academic prior to joining the bank, young people do want to get into agriculture. And this is across the region from the work that we did on a 9-country study. And what's really important is understanding where they want to get involved in. Is it on platforms that can allow them to have information which they can impart because they understand it? Is it along the value chain? Is it at the farm? And in understanding that, you can get them involved. My call out right now is to get more women involved and more women on our platforms so that they can understand how critical weather information is into their farming. And so one of my desires is to do another outreach and bring more women from young to aged women to get on so they can understand this information and how critical it is in their farming. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, ladies, for that world of advice from all three of you. I think that's really excellent. Over to you, Nonto, because of time. We will need to wrap this session soon. So over to you, Nonto. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been amazing. It looks like we didn't quite get Salima Blanca on board. I don't know, Salima Blanca, did you manage to come on board somehow? She had network problems, she had network challenges, and so unfortunately she wasn't able to make it. But I think we had an amazing, afternoon and very insightful as well. So just to see if there are any comments here, Sandile says, young people do want to get involved in agriculture. They just lack information and funding opportunities, especially small scale farms. And that is Sandile. That's her comment. Thank you for that, Sandile. I don't know if anyone wants to say something about that. I know the issue of funding always comes into play, but the last few weeks we've actually spoken about funding and spoken about how, yes, it's important, but there's ways of around it, and people can still do what they need to do without as much funding that we all think we necessarily need. But that's Sandile. Thank you so much. I don't know if quickly Esther or Lisa or Maria wants to comment with regards to what Zandile's comment about the funding element.
I think from my side, from our experience as Solidaridad, one thing that I've managed, what we've learned is that young people have everything they need within their communities. They have all the resources, funding, so to speak, in a sense of resources, local knowledge, women, men, our gogos and grannies that have been in the agricultural sector for years. They've been practicing this for years. We have everything that we need, instead of looking from the outside to say, you know, who's coming to give us money? Are the Americans coming, or where are the English? Where is their money? I mean, we have everything we need. From the experience that we've had, it's just a matter of mobilizing what we have in our communities and bridging that gap where we bring in young people together with older farmers to become the mentors and the coaches of young people. As I mentioned, I was in Zimbabwe 2 weeks back, and one of the main things that we were encouraging the older farmers, you know, we're like, where are your children? Well, the children are out there playing, doing each other's hair. And like, so why aren't you bringing them on board to be part and parcel of what the great work that you're doing in communities? And you find that there's the older farmers, they know everything. Everything is there. The knowledge, the resources, whatever they needed was. So for me, it's just really a matter of beyond just the funding. How then do we mobilize the indigenous knowledge systems that we have already and capitalize on that, and obviously make it more interesting for young people to, you know, to participate. So yes, I think funding is important. But first and foremost, we are so rich. I was just so amazed at how rich we are in Africa, but we don't see that, the richness that we have in terms of resources and knowledge and all the others things that we look for out there, which we already have within. So that's really my my experience in terms of getting more youth to be involved.
Thank you for that. I think we've got Esther. I know, Esther, you want to dash, so maybe we'll have Esther, and then after that, Maria.
Great, thanks very much. I just want to say for the young people that it is so important to get into a network. Get into the network, because those networks are your future sources of information. So I really would encourage, in terms of really being proactive, be proactive in building your network. Attending these webinars that are being held becomes that network you need, because you've got information now. You can reach out to Lisa, to Precious, to Maria, to myself, and who knows where that will take you. So be proactive and get involved and get into a bigger set of networks. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Esther. And maybe you can share your email address. I'm sure others are looking for email addresses where they can contact Esther, Lisa, Maria. Please share your email addresses so people are able to connect with you. And Maria, quickly, in just 30 seconds, please go ahead and say what you want.
No, I just want to thank everyone for making the time, but my take-home message is we kind of echoing what Esther said, but we also need to be more proactive as well in terms of engaging the youth. Let's hear what they have to say. Let's hear what they feel needs to be done, especially for them to be more involved in agriculture. Because in most cases, some of these initiatives, they are attended by their parents or their grandparents, and they don't get involved. So we also need to create the platforms and the forums to hear what the youth have to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Before we cross over to Esther, I know we've run out of time. I put a link to our survey. It's a very short survey, just 3 questions, literally less than 1 minute. If you could all just kindly click on that link and just quickly fill in the surveys, just 3 questions. We'd love to get your feedback and know what you thought about our discussion today. But thank you so much. And I'll hand over to Precious to do the thank yous and to get our photo done as well.
Yes. Wow. What can I say after that, Nodo? You've done all the thank yous, and once again, another thank you to all of you for participating in this session, and especially to our wonderful presenters, Lisa, Esther, and also Maria. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the other lady to talk about livestock, but nevertheless, this was time well spent. So once again, you will be hearing from us with regards to another session. I think it's next week, Wednesday, where we will be talking about technology, but we will be sharing that information soon. But once again, without holding you further, thank you so much. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the week. And we look forward to be engaging you in our programs at Solidaridad. We have youth interventions that we hope to continue this conversation on so that we go beyond talk into action. So we will be definitely reaching out to you to see how we can work together with you in some of our gender work also, and the broader interventions that we have. So once again, thank you so much. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Yeah, do you have anything?
We're going to take a photo, so I was waiting for you to
A
say.
photo, yay! If we can all please put on our cameras so we can take a beautiful photo for everyone, and we can add on to the recording, which we will be sharing as well. I think, let me see if the picture is taken. Okay, done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.